Hi guys, welcome to another knitting pod. I am Lena. I'm coming to you from Boulder, Colorado, and today I'm trying to bring you a mini episode. So I'm gonna just wean it down to one project that I wanted to update you guys on and leave out all my other ramblings. Focus, Lena, focus. Let's see if I can get it done. I just wanted to update you. I've been thinking about you and I had made a decision that I wanted to update you on. So today's mini episode is about the Weekender. It is a sweater by Andrea Mowry. It is a sweater I cast on about 6 weeks ago, I want to say. I had made lots of progress on it until I realized I made a mistake. I think I was about halfway done with the body when I realized I made a mistake. It was one of those things that kind of flew under the radar. And then once it was in my mind and had come to my attention, I just couldn't see past it. I talked about this in a couple of episodes ago. I'll try to link it if I can find which episode I talked about it in. But anyway, I discussed that what had happened was if you are not familiar with Andrea Mowry's Weekender sweater, it is knit inside out from the bottom up. So basically you're knitting everything in stockinette except for this ridge right here that you purl. And I basically, rather than slipping that stitch every other round when you come to it, I purled it in every single round. And it created, if you can see, this weird ridge on one side where there's a tensioning issue. And as I said in that other podcast, when a sweater is so clean and plain and then there's one defining feature and you mess that feature up, it's hard to hide. You know, I am not a perfectionist in my knitting. I love to just find a way to fudge it and move forward. But this was just one of those things that was like, it's like a very clean canvas with one thing on it and it wasn't gonna work. I wasn't gonna be able to fudge it. So I asked you guys what you thought and you were so kind and generous with all your input. So I got so many ideas for fixing it, which I cannot tell you how much I appreciate. I read each one and I really learned a lot. You guys are so creative and I loved some of the ideas. One of them was to drop down not only this column in the center, but the two on the side and then drop them down and repick them up, which would, this viewer had said, if I dropped that first, the middle column first, and then the side two columns and fixed them all, that the tension would even out. Another idea was to mattress stitch around that seam on the wrong side and kind of suck in that extra fabric. Another person said just pick up an entire extra column in that extra where that tension issue was, and that would suck up that extra yarn. So many incredible ideas. However, my final decision after putting this project aside, letting it simmer in my mind, is that it is not my dream for this yarn. And let me explain. It is not because I do not want to fix the mistake. I've just decided, I learned something about myself, and I will tell you what I learned. I learned, you guys know if you've watched any of my episodes, that color is what brings me alive. I absolutely love color. It is what drew me into knitting. It's why I love someone like Stephen West, who just is just such a vibrant color artist. And this project is a very simple project. Even for me, who's not a super advanced knitter, it's just stockinette in the round with these two, seams in the front and the back, very simple project, which I really love. However, this yarn, which is beautiful, is also very muted. It is really pretty, if you can see it. Can you see? I don't know if you can kind of appreciate, there's like a minty green and pink, very, very subtle variations in this yarn. I think I said it before, it reminds me of Bluebell peppermint ice cream. If you ever get it at the holidays, it kind of has that mintiness. It's called Dew. It is by Julie Asselin in the Nurtured base, and I absolutely love this. It's plied, but it is woolen spun. It's very rustic. It's not super wash. And I love this yarn, which is why I think I was so tortured about this project, because I want to really do right by this yarn and enjoy it. And I realized if my yarn is simple and not a crazy color, I need a more complicated pattern to go with it to keep my interest and make it feel fulfilling as a knit for me. Whereas if I'm gonna do the weekender, I'm gonna need to do it in a wild and funky, colorful yarn. Even if it's not like neon, it just is gonna need to be speckled or something so that when I'm knitting, I'm getting to watch that fabric unfold, which I just find so much joy in. But the combination of this plain yarn and a very simple fabric in this knit, it's just not doing it for me. Like, it's just not. It's not that I don't want to fix a mistake. It's just that this project, combination of the yarn and the project, doesn't excite me, doesn't bring me joy. So sadly, off to Frog City we go. I'm gonna rip it out. I'm telling you guys, this yarn is spectacular and it deserves the right project. And I don't think this is the right project. The end. That is what I learned. Every project, whether I'm not gonna call it a failure at all, whether it ends up as a finished object or not, it teaches us something, right? Like, I really learned something about myself, not only to read a simple pattern carefully, because that is really critical. I learned that. Like, if I had read the instructions, which are just 2 rows for the body, if I'd read them carefully and closely, I wouldn't have made this mistake. But if I hadn't made this mistake, I wouldn't have learned such an interesting thing about my tastes. So what do I want to do with this yarn? I have some ideas. If you've watched any of my previous episodes, know that I'm also knitting the Stephen West mystery knit along from 2022 called Twists and Turns. And it had a lot of cabling in it. I had never cabled, and I fell in love with it. It is so fun. Especially there's this one section where he does antler cables, and I just fell in love with the result. I still think, because I'm a new knitter, every time I try a new technique or do a new, you know, whether it's like brioche or lace, like I'm doing in my ranunculus, I feel like this childlike awe at what our tools and our medium can create. Like the diversity of what you can make with yarn and 2 sticks, it just never ceases to amaze me. It literally makes me feel like a little kid just, you know, seeing snow for the first time or something. I'm in love with cables and how just changing the order of stitches can create this whole new magical thing. Thea Coleman, I've never knit one of her patterns, but one of my local yarn shops last year did, I think, like a knit along with one of her projects, and it was cabled. It was the Oban cardigan. It was just so beautiful. I love an all-over cable sweater or cardigan. I love it. And that will be such a challenge for me. And I think this is the perfect yarn. Like, you don't want a speckled variegated yarn in cables because there's so much going on already. in the fabric that a light colored woolen spun woolly wool would just be perfect. It's gonna be perfect. So I've narrowed it down, I think, to 2 sweaters. The Oban sweater, which is, I will pop a picture, or the Claret sweater, I believe. The Oban is like a kind of a circular neck, almost maybe kind of crew neck-ish. Not crew neck, a little more boat neck, I think. And then the Claret is a V-neck with a different kind of cable vibe. These are my 2, like, they are very aspirational. I would be lying if I said I am confident that I can do it. I'm really nervous. It looks really involved. But I am confident in my abilities to conquer something that I really want to have and learn. So I do think it might be just like a slower going project, which is totally fine. And I think they're done in pieces, which would be awesome because then I can feel like I'm literally biting off pieces. The other project that would be like me doubting my abilities and kind of trying to just dip my toe is Joji Locatelli. I don't remember the name. I'll put a picture and leave a link in the description box. It is a more simple V-neck with like a cabled panel in the front. So maybe a little bit more, you know, beginner cabling, intermediate cabling than Thea Coleman. I've been looking at the Ravelry reviews. I'll do a little more deep diving into the Ravelry the project section of those Thea Coleman sweaters to see what I think. So yeah, that is my final decision. I hate ripping stuff back. It's just not a very fun process. But you know, I'll feel relieved when this baby's off, get my little cords back and the yarn back and kind of make a decision about which cabled sweater. I would love to know if you've had similar experiences where, you know, maybe you endeavored into a project with the wrong yarn. And maybe it wasn't the wrong yarn because the project wasn't going to turn out right, but just maybe that you didn't feel like it was a match. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe me just being overly, you know, I just want to love my knits. And when you have a finished object that you don't love, it's kind of a bummer. So we're going to aim for love here, you guys. We're aiming for love. The Weekender is such a popular pattern that I know I will love it. I love that kind of sweatshirt feel. I don't like, you know, mock turtlenecks or really tight things. I like very flowy clothes. So I think it would fit my aesthetic, but maybe in a more fun yarn. Maybe one of the Wandering Flock yarns. You know how she does those, like the finished fabric almost looks tie-dye, which, you know, I love my neons and pastels together. And Wandering Flock is the queen of that. So we shall see. That is that. One more thing I wanted to talk about in this little mini episode is the other unfinished object that has been driving me crazy. If you can believe, I only have one unfinished object that is driving me crazy. I have other unfinished objects, but they're not driving me crazy because they're in process. We've come to terms with like our emotions and speed and all that. But this one, you guys, this is the Earth and Air sweater by James N. Watts. I cast this on last summer. It's over here. I'm gonna get it and show you. I cast this on last summer because I had bought this yarn and cast a different sweater on that I did not find the directions of this sweater to be clear. We don't need to talk about which sweater it is, but I found it very, very, very difficult to follow the pattern, and I really taught myself to knit, so I feel confident in reading a pattern. This was just not clear. So I had already bought this yarn for that, and I ripped that out. I didn't even get very far. I don't even think I got past a swatch. It was color work, and it was just, anyway. So then I decided I wanted to cast this sweater on. I decided I'll just show it to you instead of trying to describe it constantly. This is the Earth and Air. If you have seen this ever, it is a brioche sweater, and in the pattern, he holds worsted weight as one strand, and the other of the brioche yarn knitting is done with a lace weight mohair. I decided to kind of do the opposite. I was holding this thicker DK weight. This is Blue Sky brushed Suri alpaca, I think is what it's called. It is this incredible, fluffy dream. Look, you guys, don't you just want to like envelop your entire body in this? It's so soft and fluffy. It was a super awesome price point. Love this yarn. I thought this is perfect. I really wanted to do like a pastel rainbow fade. I don't know if it's reading on the camera, but if I show you on the back, on the inside, outside, you can see that I faded fingering weight yarn to create kind of a really soft, halo-y look, okay? You with me? What I was aiming for? Now, why is this languishing? There's always a why. You know there's always a why. It's not, I think we've all known, like, it's easy to start a project, it's easy to finish a project, but that middle can get dicey, right? You're like losing steam and you're kind of, but most of the time we power through. Why is this languishing? I will never knit an entire sweater out of brioche again in my life. That's a bold statement, and I will stand by it. It is just too much. It's just too much. It's like you're knitting every round twice if you've done brioche. I can't do it anymore. I loathe the sight of this. It's just, if I thought I could cleanly rip this out, I would, but I can't because there are so many ends and they're all like, they've all melded into one, and I've probably woven in ends, and I did the weave and Steven, and it would be a disaster. So as you can see, I'm on one sleeve, and you're thinking, I know you're thinking, come on, Lena, you can power through this. You're almost done with one sleeve, and then you have one sleeve left. That is it. I don't think I can, y'all. I don't think I can. So here's my plan. There is another podcast, I can't remember what it's called, but she had not finished her Rhinebeck sweater in time for Rhinebeck in terms of, I think she had finished like part of a sleeve, but not the other one. And so she wore her sweater, but wore a blazer on top of it so you couldn't tell. And that was like, I just had a flash of what I wanted to do. I'm going to rip this sleeve out and then let it just be a boxy, vesty underlayer. Because I wish you could feel this through the camera. It's like a dream. It will be so soft against my skin, but I just can't do the sleeves. I hate doing the brioche and magic loop. It's making me hate knitting, and I'm just not enjoying it. So I'm gonna rip that sleeve back and just leave it kind of unfinished, weave in the ends, and then I can wear it with a sweatshirt or a cardigan or whatever. I will wear it, I know I will. And my style is super funky and weird anyway. I don't care if people think I look kind of kooky. So that's what I'm gonna do. That is how I'm gonna salvage this. And yeah, I'm feeling really good about it. I'm really excited because I really do like the way it looks. I think it's so neat how that alpaca softens the color changes and just kind of creates this fun fabric. And, you know, the body was actually fun to knit until I split for the front and the back, and then there was increases and decreases, and it stopped being fun. Brioche is tricky. I think I could really use a class on brioche. I'm a champ at brioche, like in a shawl, but when it comes to the complicated decreases and increases, I am not up to the level that I can finish this and be sane and happy about it. So anyway, I'm really excited to have shared this with you. I've been looking for that right time to talk about it. I always have too much to talk about. So I thought this episode about frogging and how, you know, to approach whether we want to finish a project or not, this fit in perfectly. So after I get that done, there will be no projects in my life that are bugging me. I would like to keep it that way. I always try to think, like, when I get excited about a new project, like, do you really want to do that? Or are you just like caught up in the moment of like this exciting new pattern that's been released? You know, we have only so many hours a day to knit, unfortunately, and they are not enough hours. Okay. 20-something minutes. I knew I could do a mini episode. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all your input and your thoughts on The Weekender. Yeah, if I cast another one on with some funky yarn, you'll be the first to know. Have a great week, and I'll see you in a regular episode in a few days. Okay, bye.